Hello and welcome to this live stream. This is number 17, so we've been doing it for a few weeks now, but it's all good fun. Pam can't join us today on the live stream, but I'm sure she'll catch up on the on Patreon. So hello Pam anyway. Sue, nice to have you here with us, and Ken. Possible snow for Sue. We're hoping for some good weather tomorrow. It's been cold and windy here in France, but tomorrow is supposed to be good. And hopefully some good weather for you in Wales as well, Ken. So I've got two paintings here, possibly. Well, definitely, we're going to have a go at. The bottom one is this wheelbarrow with some flowers in. This is Kate's parents' garden in France. So nice bit of sunshine there. And then I've been looking at some John Singer Sargent paintings that it's very loose. I consider myself to paint loose watercolors, but these are really loose. I can just switch to the other camera. These are some of the Sargent paintings I've been looking at. These are obviously not very good prints, but you get the idea that I imagine these were probably painted on location because they are so loose, just sort of capturing the moment. So I shall try and incorporate some of that. And again, I can see where he's painted this, where the paper was still wet. He probably would have wanted a hard edge there, but just dashing off something quickly while you're out and about. I'd imagine these were all on location. And another Venice one there as well. So no definition or anything, but I think they're great. So I'll be working on a few of these over the next few weeks on Patreon and YouTube. But today we'll have a go at this one here. Hello from Switzerland and Italy. So I shall start with a fairly big brush, the Skoda 16 this one is. I thought I picked up a 14, but 16 will do. So first of all, just talk through my plan. I've done the drawing. It's quite a complex drawing. I got a little bit lost down here. But I drew the shapes in between the wheelbarrow, and that kind of did help. But a lot of this is going to be dark anyway, so the pencil marks will be lost. So I need to do a wash first with sort of set the tone for a nice yellow ochre maybe. Keep it all light and not to go too dark with it. And bring it down all over the page. Then I shall paint these flowers in wet into wet to give that soft look. And then I'll let it dry. And then I shall come in and paint the darks around here wet onto dry paper and give myself a hard edge along here. And then the white of the sheet on the washing line here, that's going to be a nice bit of contrast between light and dark. So I've got a bit of a plan. Right, so the colours I've got here, so this is a Liz Deacon palette. Sue has recently got one as well, I see, which I've got yellow ochre, I've got cadmium yellow, there's a bit of Hansa yellow in there as well, Zion crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, there's neutral tint and some Daniel Smith pile red, and I have a little bit of white in there. Originally these were halves, but I actually cut out some of the dividers. It wasn't easy to do, but just made these a little bit bigger. But you could just fill two pots up really if you wanted to. Hello from Germany. So let's get some yellow on the go. So don't want to go too dark, particularly with this sheet. And even, a little bit of white paper left on there would be good. Some bits in there. This is all going to be painted over, a lot of this, except for the light areas. I will switch to a bit of green for these flowers. But again, don't want to go too dark. Keep it all nice and light in there. So just keep painting wet into wet. Let everything mix. So where I'm painting this yellow ochre, this is going to be the sunshine. So the warmth on the grass here, the light on that sheet, and the wheelbarrow and the pot here, that's going to be darker. So I can paint over those because I'll just paint dark over those. But so this is just the first wash, which is kind of say getting that warmth into the scene, go nice and warm in the foreground here. So while this is wet, switch to a smaller brush. I think it'd be a good idea to perhaps get some shadow colour on that blanket while it's wet sheet. So need to make sure I don't go too dark with it. Just confidently put a few marks on. They'll either be okay or they won't. You can't mess about with it or do any more than that to it. Mark one down there. So that's done. So bit of red. So straight from the tube, this Pyrrole red. So that's about as bright red as I've found. So it's just damp here with these, I'm not sure what flowers are, I'm no good at flowers, red ones. That with colour, it's got to be careful not to just put it everywhere. That a bit of colour is lovely, but if we go too mad with it, it loses its effect. So that's probably enough red. Got some mauve there as well, so a bit of ultramarine blue probably do the trick. So these are flowers. Maybe I'll add a little bit of titanium, a bit of white gouache with that, just to give it a bit of body. So I'll probably go maybe with some detail after this, but we'll see. The dark background is going to make this pop, hopefully. A bit of yellow. Lots of people joining today, which is great. So we've had a few live streams now. And lots of people have joined Patreon this week, so appreciate that, and thanks for joining. Hopefully you're enjoying the content on there, and lots of new subscribers on YouTube as well, so it's all appreciated. So we need to get some darker greens in there. So try and make a natural looking green. Greens are always tricky. So maybe darker with this one. And just paint to keep that red nice and bright. I just need to make sure I don't paint over it, or it'll just dull, particularly with the green. So, and again, this probably will not look great until I get the background in. So I've just got to be patient. And I could always resort to a bit of gouache if I need to. But try to use that sparingly. So there we go. And just pull some of those up. So that's the flowers on the wheelbarrow, hopefully. Geraniums, possibly. Right, so now we probably need to kind of just let that dry, but we'll just let it dry naturally, and perhaps I'll work on this wheelbarrow down here. So mix up a dark. Brown and the blue is a good place to start for a dark. I'm using thicker paint now, and if I do this while it's still wet, I will get a bit of softness and mixing on the paper. So there's the dark of the wheelbarrow. And that comes around here. And now I should just wash the brush off. It's got some old paint left on it that is an old wheelbarrow, which is perhaps why it's been demoted to or promoted to holding flowers. It was once a green wheelbarrow. I'll just let that mix on the paper there, and shall we retain a little bit of sparkle and paint some of that into there, which will be some darker shapes, but this is still damp, so I'm going to get softness in here. I don't want anything, any hard edges in here at the moment, so a bit of shadows in there, connecting up to there. So same as I normally do, make sure I've got this bead here, and now I can connect all of this up so it looks like it's all part of the same thing, which it obviously is. And then we start to go over to green here. I need to make sure I go dark enough with that wheel. Bit of burnt umber maybe. And with wheels, you either got to get them perfectly round or just make them a bit odd like this one. But I think probably a bit more character if they've got a bit of an odd shape. That is light on the front here. Someone's having a lunch break at the moment and watching the video. Great. I used to do some painting on my lunch break when I was working, not painting. I'd go into Abereron, the harbour, and set up my easel and do a bit of painting and see what it could achieve in an hour. Obviously in France you get a 2-hour lunch break. I haven't got the right green there, but it doesn't matter. So again, just get it as good as I can. And what I quite often do, if something's looking a bit odd, I'll just maybe splash a bit of water on it. There's going to be a shadow down here. So we'll do the pot, which can be some burnt sienna. It's probably darker than that, but a bit of colour won't hurt. So fairly thick paint there. So just use a bit of water just to connect that up into there, because again we don't want a pot that's not connected to what's going above there. So it's in shadow, so we'll just mix on the paper. So there we go. Right. It's probably a good idea to paint the shadows here at the same time, because we've got all this wet stuff down here. So there's probably several ways you could tackle this painting, what to paint first, or but I kind of just go with the flow. So make sure I get this dark enough for this shadow and a nice colour. So we've got, so I'll probably end up leaving this as the colour of the grass. Maybe it's been a hot summer and it's all dried. So there's the shadow. I'm painting that into the pot to connect it all up. Paint it up into those legs, paint it into the wheel. And just use the brush on the side here. I shall have a look at your comments in a second and answer some of those questions if there's any questions there for me. So that's going okay at the moment. So I'll probably need to let that dry, and then I'll come from the top and work my way down. What is the total of hours worked with a 2-hour lunch break? Well, I think they start quite early and they don't finish till late. So I think they still work the same amount of hours, but a nice long lunch break to go home and have a siesta maybe. I'll just dry this off. particularly things like wheels, that if you don't get them perfect, like I said, you know, they just look odd. So if you purposely throw some water on them and make them look all sort of misty and messy like this, it looks like you did it on purpose. So that's always a good move, I find. So let's get you know, dark bit of colour up here maybe, and then there's the side of the sheet. So that's probably a tin roof or something there. And it doesn't really matter, it's just a bit of colour. So we'll use a bit of neutral tint. I'll put it in that red. And again, we've got to make sure we go dark enough, because if I don't get my darks dark enough, I'll have to go over them again. And then if you have to do something twice, it never looks as good as if you can do it the first time. Obviously, sometimes you just got to do it again. It doesn't always work that way. So there's the sheet. There. It's still wet there, so we can pull that up into there. A nice dark in there. And then these look like compost bags or bags with wood in there. This is a barbecue here. So I've made the sheet floating about in the wind a little bit more. So straight into those. And I don't need to put any detail on there, they're just there basically. So a bit of yellow ochre, and I can just suggest some stones there. But again, this is all stuff off in the distance, so just things, that's all you need there. Go dark with this wall, so I'll use some of that, some of that. As soon as I get that in there, it's going to hopefully all come together. Something in there. A bit of dry brush to suggest the texture of that wall. I'm not going to paint bricks and so on, not in the background there, because it is literally just the backdrop. And it's fine. Go darker here. It's a bit more of that. Let's add a bit more red. Go darker here while it's wet. You know, the stuff in the distance, if you can do it wet into wet, it's always going to look better because it's going to soften. So, you know, you could suggest maybe 1 or 2 bricks. Why not? And then the barbecue, nice and dark in there. Again, I don't need any detail whatsoever. It's just a dark in the background. And a bit of burnt sienna. Nice bit of warmth. It's a sunny day. So that's fine. Could go darker. Let's go really dark in there, but do it while it's wet. There you go. So go darker over here as well. And brave. Sometimes you just got to go for it. Bit of water on there. So we'll just stuff off in the background there. So a bit more of that burnt sienna. So the darker we go with, you know, things like here, the lighter it will look because you have more contrast. So we can create that feeling of sunlight by painting these fairly dark. So this is just stuff that's creating the illusion. So it's just an illusion. And some darks there. That's just a bit too black. It's a bit warmth on there. So that's stones there. Just a bit of water on there. And they're just too harsh. Let's just soften that a little bit there. Maybe just a bit of dry brush, some gravel. A bit of that through there as well. Maybe just a bit of texture. So we could suggest a few leaves or something coming over here, as it's a garden, you know, some bushes and something. So a nice bit of green, thick paint. So it's only a suggestion, so we don't need any more than that. Mix into there, another in there. So shadow under the washing line. Bit of water just to soften that. So all I think we need on that really is probably just some more flowers really. It's just lacking a little bit. So just a bit of that yellow straight from the tube. A lot of the cabin colours are like gouache and they've got quite a lot of body to them. So you can use them straight from the tube to create suggestion of flowers. But you know, it's a loose painting. I'm not painting flowers. Let's try. I've got some mauve here. Let's squeeze some of that out. See what that will create. So we don't have to have the same colour for the flowers. Let's put a bit of gouache in there as well. I don't mind using a bit of gouache in my watercolours for certain things. So let's have a couple of flowers up here. Light against dark. It's going to work well. Don't want to go too mad with it. It's quite nice, that mauve. Used it a couple of times. And a few more there. But again, you've got to be careful because before you know it, you've just got flowers everywhere. A bit of more white in there. So I'll have to clean that one off. So light against dark. That will make it look like it's coming forward. I think it just needs maybe some dark in here. But let's just use a bit of dry brush just to got to be careful because it doesn't take long before it then becomes overworked and looks like a mess. So, a bit of gouache to the rescue. Like it's growing over the pot there, so it looks a bit more realistic. And these Scoda Perla brushes are great for this sort of detail because it just comes to that point. It's great for doing all this stuff. And definitely getting to the point now where I think I need to stop. So let's take the tape off and let's see if we just captured something there. The sheet there moving, I think adds a little bit of movement to the scene. So this is on a 9 by 12 inch paper and Saunders and Waterford £140 knot. The only thing, maybe if I was doing it again, I might have gone maybe a little bit green in the grass. That I suppose we could, nothing to lose. We could try maybe putting a bit of green in there. We've got some on the palette here. Let's do it. So just a bit of dry brush, just a bit of green. I think that might work quite well. See, that's going to need to come through here as well. But I'm sure it probably hardly made a difference. But so there we go. That's that one there. I think that's worked fairly well. So we'll have a go at the next one, which is going to be back to my original screen. Bear with me. There we are. So this scene here, which originally was painted by John Singer Sargent, but what I like about it is that the looseness of it. That I'd imagine he probably painted this on location. He was probably sitting at a table in the down the bottom corner here, where he's looking across there, and just sort of dashed it off in a view that maybe he'd do an oil painting or work it up to a bigger oil, maybe a bigger watercolor. So we'll have a go with that. I'll use an 8 by 10 inch piece of paper. Okay. So I tend to tape it. This is £140 knot again. That I don't really find I get any cockling with the this paper, and I just tape it with just masking tape. That I have used that brown gum tape in the past, or when I first started painting watercolor, and it was a bit of a nightmare to do it. So I didn't carry on with that when I realised just taping it was fine. I will draw this one out, but I shall try and keep the drawing really loose, because if I go too tight with the drawing, I'll end up, a tight painting. That the drawing wasn't particularly loose on the wheelbarrow one there, but hopefully I managed to keep it loose. But I think painting on location, that will really free you up, and I've certainly found that helped me to paint loose, because you don't really have much of an option but to paint loose. I'll just change my reference picture over. Right. So, pencil. So with the drawing, what I tend to do is look for the main shapes, which we've got the water's edge here. That kind of splits the paper there. So we can kind of see a little bit of water. We've got some buildings off in here, and I'm sure these, if we looked, are probably not very accurate, but it doesn't matter, because none of us probably know Venice well enough to know what errors he made, if any at all. So that's fine. So just to sketch, I'll put the figures in afterwards probably, and then we've got this building here. Coming down a little bit there so it actually fits on the page. So again, I'd imagine probably most of this was just slightly sketched out, and then the detail was put in with the paint, but it looks like a really detailed painting. He's hardly painted any detail. 1, 2, 3, 4, and something there. There's some kind of building there. So it's quite good using reference pictures from the great masters, because they've already worked out the composition for us. So that's handy. So it takes that pressure off. So we can concentrate on learning from them with compositional techniques and painting loose, whichever you're, if you're looking at this particular artist, it's probably because you like the way he paints loose. So that's what I'm going to be looking to do. Rub out that line there, caused me a problem. And then we've got these tables here, so there's a bit of perspective to take into account. So they disappear off there. So we've got one table, two, and I shall just take those lines out there. The perspective may not be perfect, but probably good enough. And the vanishing point on this, probably somewhere around here. So let's get some paint on there. The pencil I was using here is a 0.7mm mechanical pencil. It says Mephisto. It's got quite a nice grip on there. So I use all sorts of pencils. So 8x10, so it's not particularly big. So we can use a fairly small brush. This is a Skoda 14. So light with the sky, but we don't want to go too dark because there's quite a feel of light in this scene. We'll probably just leave the water white. I think that's probably what he did. So a bit of yellow ochre with a touch of red. When I do these master studies, I sort of wonder, is that how he got to this colour as well? A lot of warmth in here. Steps there. Inside of the building, so perhaps the light is coming in this way, although I'm not sure how that shadow is working on there, but it doesn't have to be accurate. He may have just put a shadow there because he thought the composition would be good, but I can leave that out or put it in, depending on my painting. The purpose of these master studies is, obviously this is not my composition or my work, it's to learn, and my exercise here is to try and paint loose, even more loose than I normally paint. So, a bit of warmth in there as well. So we can go straight into these distant buildings. So I'll use a bit of that mauve. Might as well use it up. Touch of blue in there. So, probably just about dry enough. So, probably a little bit too dark. Let's just wash some of that off. I'm just looking at the shapes, and this is an ideal subject for beginners. I think Venice, if you just forget all the detail and just paint shapes, it's a great exercise because it always looks good. If you get the rough shapes correct, it doesn't have to be perfect, as you can see with Sargent's painting here, that it's really sort of captured the scene. But I'm sure there's lots of errors, dare I say, but maybe it's not errors, maybe he's just captured it perfectly. Good mix of warm and cool colours there. Need to keep it nice and light off in the distance here on the paper there. There's a fairly crisp edge along there. So you don't have to follow the colours exactly that on these master studies. You can make it your own. So it gets a little bit darker, but not a great deal, on this building in the foreground. So again, I shall mix on the paper. So I went probably a little bit high with that, but never mind. It's just an exercise. So I'll probably just put some water on that and take away some of that purple by just using a bit of yellow ochre, the opposite end of the colour wheel. And then just use clean water just to let that travel down. leaving a few bits of white paper, bit of sparkle, and steps. So I need to try and get those fairly accurate. They disappear off down to here. And obviously the figures are going to cover a lot of that. I'll just put a bit of water on there. And side of the building there. Suggestion of windows. Got the perspective probably wrong on that, but it's good to not worry too much when you paint, stuff like this. It's a learning exercise. That if I paint something loose, but if I don't get the perspective perfect, that's probably okay. Because if the exercise is to just paint loose, that's all I need to worry about. I almost sort of think he possibly sort of just got so far with it because he didn't paint any shadows on the figures or anything, but maybe there weren't any. But so some darks now in the building here because they need to be put in while it's wet, otherwise they'll just look like it's stuck on. So we've got dark there, maybe go darker there. I'm just kind of looking at it and just try to get it as best I can. Something there, something there. I've never been to Venice, but maybe one day. There's the archways. Just pull that down. Do some of that. So I didn't even see that until just now. There's something here, not sure what that is. Put the shape of it in. Verticals always look good. There's a statue there. Yeah, this brush is great. I imagine not using these Escoda brushes. They're definitely a picture of my toolkit. So I'll move on from that, because I know most of that's going to be covered with the figures. So let's put these boats in here. That's dried now. There we go. On there. Again, a lot of this is going to be covered with the figures, but we'll just put them in. A couple of verticals in. Fine. Just a couple of darks up here. All this doesn't need anything there. It's easy to get tricked into trying to paint stuff you don't need to. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll have a go at the figures. Fairly dark with the figures. It's obviously lighter in tone, the ones that are further away. So we'll start. The head height looks to be there's going to be someone sat here with their head there. Maybe the head there. So I have got the perspective wrong, but just do this one here, sitting down. To do. Just go for it. It's the best way. That's someone sat there. Chair leg, table, his leg, someone else sat there. Elbow on the table. There's his there, bit small paint. I'm just looking at shapes, and the viewer will have a job to obviously fill in the rest. So we'll go with the same figures he's got there. Obviously they've got hats on there. That's given me the kind of head height there. So they're sat down, so someone standing up is going to be, you know, a little bit taller. And then we can then use the head height here for these other people. Obviously maybe we're standing up slightly higher. These ones are walking away, and you can just basically 1, 2, 3, you know, there are people, other people there in the distance, and I will put some legs and shadows on those. They're all slightly leaning over at the moment. Another one there. A few people up on the steps. So I tend to just do a dot for the head, body, and just a suggestion of the legs. And that's kind of, I think, probably how he's done it as well. That if you try to avoid doing the figures like this, because it's not how we see people. And if you look at people as they're walking in front of you, you kind of see their head, which is just slightly down behind their back. And maybe we can even put some birds in the sky. And by painting quite quickly like this, it does free you up to experiment. So Vanessa's going to Venice. Lucky you. But, we've got a group called Inspirational Photos for Artists. So the link's in the description on my other videos. If you can join that, it'd be great to see some of your photos from Venice. I think someone has already shared some photos. So, a bit of blue there for these tables. Soften that a little bit. So let's have some figures sitting on here, but you know, they're just shapes. And when you get your head around, you know, not having to worry about things being perfect, you know, it frees you up to just, like I say, just paint shapes. There's another person there just tucked in around there. Just mop some of that up. We're doing this time. We've got 15 minutes and might have a go at doing a quick, simple landscape maybe, just to finish the evening. So I think I'll leave that, whatever that is there, off. I don't think it needs it on there. So just a simple little sketch there that it's good fun just to speed things up and just go for it sometimes. Let's see if we can do a quick landscape in 15 minutes. Well, one didn't take very long either. Bit of paper. Bear with me a second. I hadn't anticipated painting 3 tonight, but let's go for it. We don't need that. We'll just go for making something up. Got a scene I did the other day, which I did make up, so I'll just have a go at something similar to that. But hopefully you're all still here. But I know that was very quick. The replay will be available, and I will edit them, or Kate will edit them for me on Patreon. And obviously I've got on Patreon a lot of beginner videos, which will be a lot slower than what I'm doing here, and hopefully subjects that are achievable for someone who's new to watercolour. So it's interesting that I've done 17 of these live streams with all different subjects, but they've all got sort of very different views. That seems that the cityscapes seem popular, flowers not so popular, but who knows with YouTube's algorithm. So let's just mix all this up down to here and see what we can paint with mud. There we got horrible grey. So, your water on there. We'll bring that down to about there. Let's use some of this mauve, get rid of it. Way too strong. Let's just get rid of that a little bit. So with watercolour, you can mess about with it while the paper's wet. But as soon as the paper dries, you've got to stop, because it will just, you end up lifting the paint off what's there and making a mess. But the whole time it's like this, you can go back into it and do stuff without the worry of messing it up. So we'll let that continue there. So we'll go for maybe a river there. Could be a disaster. We'll see. So as long as we keep a nice harmonious palette, otherwise keep the colours looking good, we should be okay. So there we go. My river. Switch to a smaller brush. Get a bit of yellow in there. So this is completely different to how I normally paint. So I'll show you the scene I'm kind of using as a bit of a reference, which I didn't paint it like this. But it's interesting to see what different results you can get from just messing about. So paper's really wet here. A disaster, doesn't it? So let's a bit of blue into that sky. So while it's wet, you can keep going. I'm going to use my natural sponge. I get out of trouble, just to lift a little bit of light out of there. So let's dry that off before we end up with a disaster. "10 minutes. So let's go for, I'm determined to use up this mauve that I put out. All sorts of colours there. So I've got some white paper here, or light paper. So if I put my dark tree there, we'll get a bit of contrast. More water on the brush there, I think. I need to go a bit darker here. A bit of contrast. Just use the side of the brush just to pop that up there. Bit of water on here, splash it on there. Let it do some stuff. Make that bead of water. And maybe that tree over here. And maybe we'll have a tree up in the sky. We'll have a bigger tree in a moment. It's for later, that is. Use a bit of clean water just to run that across there. Create a soft edge. Just mop that up a little bit. So let's go nice and dark. Get rid of this mauve. This is definitely a mauve painting. There's the curve of the river. And these sort of scenes you could just paint again and again and just experiment. I shall put some of this yellow ochre on there. Let it mix on the paper. And sometimes they turn it to be absolute disasters, but sometimes they can be, you know, gems. So just clean water. Just put that down here. Let's get some clean tissue. I've got loads of water on here at the moment. Run down. Water there. Let's just drag that down. Continue mixing down there. Just carry that across there. How are we doing? We've got 7 minutes. Darker here. Nearly got rid of that mauve. You can go quite thick with the paint. See, not sort of oil paint thick. But, splash a load of water on that. And it looks a mess, but hopefully when I dry it, it will look good. I hope. Again, water down here. Run down. And just clean my brush off. Clean water there. We're going to need to dry it in a moment. But, have a go at putting a tree here. A bit of dark. So too mad. Use this brush here. So I've got so much water on here, I can actually use what's on the paper to paint with. Right, so that connects it all up with this water and just create that illusion of branches and so on. I think we'll dry this off. I said that before, but see what we've got. So there we go. Let's just put a bird in the sky. I just had a quick look at some of the comments there. It's difficult to read them while I'm painting, but thanks, Mark, for giving everyone that's giving me some likes. Much appreciated. I'll let YouTube know that people want to see this. So I've got a mark there. Yeah, it's a bird now. Another one there. I could maybe just suggest reflection in the water. Just think, be like that, something like that. Have that off there. So let's take the tape off. Don't mess about with it too much. It's already a mess. Did we get that? Yeah, with 3 minutes to spare. Let's take the tape off. There we go. A well, kind of mysterious river. The scene I was looking at as a guide was this one here I painted the other day. So I'll have a demo on Patreon for this in the next couple of days. But I just added some trees on that one there. So that worked quite well. The other ones I've been working on this week, that was actually one on the beginners category on my Patreon page. So and that one there. So there's a couple of beginner ones recently added. So I think there's 16 or 17 beginner videos on Patreon. There's a sneaky peek at Saturday's challenge. That I've got a workshop coming out at the end of the month, which I think I'll concentrate on buildings. I think for that. So what else have I painted today? I just switched to the other camera, and I did a large painting today, a full-size painting on a 30 by 22 inch piece of paper. Fairly big for what I normally do. This is a scene from Le Châtre, so this will be on the Patreon again, and obviously eventually on YouTube as well. Much the same process, but a lot of spraying with water to keep it going. Just quickly show you the first one we painted again. Obviously, I'll put these on the Facebook page and my Patreon page. So that was the first one there. So quite pleased with that. It worked okay. But the contrast is what worked well with that one. Let's just switch to the camera's probably better. So yeah, definitely with wheels, keep them loose. And a lot of this was painted wet into wet. There's a lot of dry brush, so it gives that light effect. And then the sergeant study there, which I imagine if he was painting on location, he probably did it just as quick, just dashed it off. And then they just experimenting with watercolour. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all your likes and comments. I shall read through your comments now, that if I've missed any, apologies. But I really appreciate all your comments on my videos. It does help. And like I say, Sue says, we're nearly at 12,000 subscribers, so it's going really well. So until next time, I shall see you on the next video. So bye for now.